when I'm looking for products that like help me respond to
Hmm.
those wants and those needs and those trends, usually my method is I'll reach out to my reps, so
Distributor reps, if they have
my
anything in their
distributor
portfolio.
reps.
All right.
Yep, and just ask them what they have in their portfolio that like falls into that category of that thing that I'm looking for, and
Hmm.
have them bring it in and taste it. If it is not something that is readily available, I usually will just find the supplier online, typically Instagram, and just like DM them and like try to get a sample in my hand so I can play around with it.
So great stuff. Thank you again for jumping on board on the short notice, guys. Lovely, and thank you so much once again. So why don't we start with an introduction? How I see the screen. Maybe Paula, Nora. If I don't know if you're seeing in the same fashion, but we can just start from the top to the bottom. So Paula, over to you. Just give us a little 30-second intro about yourself.
Well, sure. My name is Paula Lucas. I'm in New York City. I worked in hospitality for over 30 years. I run some very successful beverage programs at Spigolo, at Bowery Road, at Knorr. Currently, I'm working with Smoke Lab, which is an Indian vodka. I also consult. I teach private cocktail classes. And right now, I'm looking to run a beverage program again in New York City, but I'm always interested in learning and giving advice and mentoring.
Great, thank you. Nora?
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Nora First. I'm based in Portland, Oregon, and San Francisco Bay Area. I own a bar restaurant in San Francisco. I also have a consulting company who consults on beverage programming, mostly up and down the West Coast, but also nationally and now internationally. We do everything from education to cocktail menu building out to brand advocacy, all the things. And also, I've been doing this for about 20 years.
Jason?
My name is Jason Lamb. I'm managing 2 bar programs in San Francisco Financial District. I've been doing it for about 14 years. The company is opening a 3rd one coming up this summer, and that'll add to the, I guess, the diversity of different bar programs. It's going to be a French concept.
Nice, great.
Yeah.
Brian?
I'm Brian Barna. I am based out of Charleston, South Carolina. I oversee 2 bars. One is a relatively small cocktail bar with an intimate scene, and another one is a very large dancing crowd. I enjoy doing this kind of stuff. I consult on a couple of different bars throughout the South Carolina area. Glad to be here.
All right, so let's get with you, Brian, first. What can a new growing brand do to stand out in their introductions, right? This is from Forrest Wilson from Branch and Barrel Distilling.
First thing for me is always to get an appointment. That way I have a full focus on you and your presentation. And if we're tasting the spirit, that way we can go over it. I also, when we're doing the first introduction I'm going to ask a lot of questions about the process, how we're doing the aging, if we're doing an aged spirit. And I like to just have a person that we can have a back and forth knowledgeable conversation. That's going to be a first impression that's going to stand out to me.
Nora, best incentives, that suppliers or brands can offer for, you guys, let's say.
Every on-premise account is different. I know that's not a very good answer, but it's true. So I think really the first step with incentivizing on-premise accounts in particular is just to have a conversation with them and really see what is going on with their programming, where their weak points are, how they like to partner best with a producer or a brand. I also think it's really important to create a structure and have systems for that partnership from the supplier side so that the brand doesn't have, or the account doesn't have to do a lot of labor in order to hold up their end of the partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So a few examples of that, like what some of the things that I love as a buyer when brands come to me is having basically different buckets. So looking at guest experiential buckets. So that would be like happy hours or education that is driven towards the guest, which is a really great way to activate slower times. So looking at, like a Sunday happy hour, Monday happy hour, maybe a late night event, depending again on the account. Tactile, so looking at physical assets for the bar. Again, like, branded coasters, branded glassware doesn't make sense for every account. But it does make sense for a lot of accounts. And so just making sure that you're offering any tactile assets that are meaningful to that account. Umbrellas are a big thing in the Bay Area, just things like that. And then looking at team experiential moments. So that would be education for the bar team or for the team who sells. So either taking them out to a distillery, having a more focused kind of category deep dive when you're talking about your spirit and not just leaning too heavily on your brand story, but kind of opening that up a little bit and creating context around what it is that you're peddling. Of course, money talks. So there's always an area to talk about kind of discounts and cocktail menu placements and that kind of thing. Again, that's more meaningful sometimes to some accounts than other accounts, but it's usually meaningful on some level to everybody. And then looking at sales incentives for the bar team themselves and or the server team. So if there's a cocktail featuring your spirit on the menu, figuring out a system with the bar manager to where whoever sells the most of that cocktail gets a gift card at the end of the month, things like that.
Got it. So just on that other thing that you said, like Monday and Tuesday, you said, so normally your slow time or slow days would be a great thing to pitch, right? Like, hey, can I come on your slowest couple of days and maybe I'll do something to bring some new footfalls, or I think that can be a sort of a no-brainer for you as well, right?
Absolutely. I think it also shows me as a buyer, there's a willingness from the supplier to reach across the aisle and partner with me in ways that are meaningful to me and not just things that are meaningful to them. So that is usually activating my space in the slower times, and that's typically a Monday or Tuesday.
And for the training for your team, let's say, some education program, if a distiller comes and takes 1 hour, when do you prefer to do that? Like Monday morning, Tuesday morning, what is a good time for staff training?
My bar restaurant is closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays is when we always try to do our staff education.
Okay.
But that is not clearly the case for every account. So I think it just depends on the account and when the staff is going to be available to attend.
And sort of what's going on that week and all that, right?
Yeah.
Jason, what is the fastest growing trend in mixology today that you are seeing? This question is from Marinila from the World Residences at Sea.
From what we're seeing over at the bars in San Francisco Financial District, at least, there's a lot of interest in lower alcohol content cocktails. After COVID, we've seen a large change in the drinking habits of the people that are in the area. Because there's a hybrid work model, there's a lot of large team happy hours. So most of the guests' social time after work is an actual work event and company sponsored. So we see a lot more responsible drinking. And there's almost like I don't want to get too drunk in front of my boss, so I need to act polite. So there's just been a strong gravitation towards drinks that are still fun, still delicious, but don't necessarily, you can have 2 or 3 and not get too intoxicated.
So this question was for Alec. So I'll ask, this is from Pablo, Avalons from Gibson Wine Company. So maybe I would like to know which is the best strategy to grow a brandy brand. What would you do if you were selling a brandy brand and knocking bars? Or if anyone wants to jump, I don't know if Paula heard me, but if anyone wants to jump on with this question or has any tips.
And I won't take up too much time if somebody else has something to say, but this is something I actually did. I worked for a California brandy company for a couple years that was attempting to grow and move into the cocktail kind of subconscious. And I would recommend, cocktail placement is huge. Not a ton of people are ordering brandies that they don't recognize off of the back bar. So making sure that you are able to position yourself on menu and cocktails that are, friendly to consumers that might not normally go for the brandy option. That's always a great move, particularly with a category that's often misunderstood. And then we did a lot of aligning our brandy with whiskeys, so comparing them to American bourbon, other types of whiskeys, and saying, swapping in and out or doing a split base, and showing that they're obviously very different spirits, but that there is some interchange between those two categories. Sorry, Paula, I didn't mean to take your question.
So Paula, you can also answer if you want. Otherwise, the next question was for you as well. So.
Sure, I'd say it depends. I mean, it's different presenting to consumers than presenting to industry. I'd say if they're looking for consumers, store tastings are great. Advertising, it's great, but people aren't familiar with brandy. A lot of people just don't understand it. They just think, is it just cognac? Not realizing there's American brandies. There's so many different levels of it. And I think for restaurants, bars, educating the staff on it, because a lot of staff isn't educated on brandy, getting them to taste, getting them to know about it. It can go in a cocktail if a bar manager or owner, it's so expensive. You can do it in a split base. You can do it in a lesser amount of it and still include it in a cocktail to introduce people.
Paula, again, from Jeff from Still Dragon North America, what spirits types you prefer from craft distilleries, and what is your definition of local? If you think, all right, guys, let's talk some local spirits, right? So how do you define local? Within the distance or size, or what's your definition?
To me, it's more distance. It's not just the city, because it hasn't actually been that long that distilleries reopened in New York City. To me, local is also New York State. There's loads of great craft distilleries around now in New York. I think it's just fabulous. So that's what I consider local. And I love stocking local spirits, and there's all different types. There's vodka, there's gin, there's bourbon, there's rye, and that's what I consider local. But I think just go into. But
let's say there are some categories where a little hand selling approach is needed, right? Like some categories are just 100%. A little hand selling, and do you prefer that because local that allows you to storytell nicely, but. If you're just comparing some like a Jim Beam customer to Jim Beam customer, you can't have a local, right. You know what I mean? Like, so just throw maybe 3 or 4 where you think that's a nice place where they can play as well.
As far as distilleries local or
just a category that you think maybe vodka is a tough sell if a local distillery comes, or do you think anyone?
There's Pollinator that does vodka. There's also for rye, New York Distilling Company has great rye. They just came out with Jaywalk. They had Ragtime Rye previously. Neversink has great gin. There's Great Jones Distilling Company that has some great whiskey. And I think the easiest way to come in and hand sell it.
Okay, so if any local, doesn't matter which category, because if you're looking for local, you're looking for local basically, right?
Mm-hmm. A lot of consumers are asking for local now.
That's good.
When they come into the bar.
Got it. All right, maybe we'll go to Brian for this. Which cocktail do you advise for whiskey brands in 2024 to attract new consumers?
Ooh, that's a hard one. There's so many really nice cocktails out there. It kind of depends on the mash bill of the brandy. Like if we're going for Scotch, old fashioned and stirred cocktails are always going to work better. Or you can always go a little bit on the tropical side and embrace fresh fruits. Bourbons and ryes, I'm always a big fan of line tails or rust upon that. It kind of, like I said, if I'm playing with something high rye, I definitely want to play into that baking spice. If we're playing something high corn, something with a little bit more citrus to kind of balance out the sweetness. Something a little smoky, I'm definitely going to go tropical. It kind of just depends on the brand and what they're trying to do and where they're at, trying to position. That's the toss-up. It's just depending on the location of the bar and the brand, what they're trying to pull off.
Nora, this is from Eduardo from Goodies SA. When do you realize there is a new trend in the market, and how do you decide to look for that product? So how are you listening? And at what point you say, all right, guys, we need to get this?
It's a really good question. I kind of feel like I exist in an echo chamber of just like beverage people throwing ideas around and beverage publications, and it becomes its own little world. So I feel like we're often kind of grabbing onto new trends all the time, even if they're not going to stick around, and we're kind of exploring them as they come through the echo chamber and then either letting them go or they bounce around for a while in there. Um, One of the things that I really try to do, and I think Jason was talking to this a little bit too, is just paying attention to what my guests want. So making sure that I'm looking at my P mix regularly, that I'm looking at the trends of consumption in my community, that I'm talking to other people who own and run bars in San Francisco, so I can understand what's happening in their bars. Obviously, different parts of the country and the world at large can be very different in the way that the trends flow through the community. So I think, often San Francisco can be more maybe on the cutting edge of what's happening. So we'll see trends hit a little bit earlier in coastal cities than we would necessarily in the center of the country. So anyway, always just paying attention to that, and then making sure that we're responding to the P mix and what people are actually consuming when they're on property with us. I also always look for areas of stagnancy on our menu. So if there's a cocktail or a style of cocktail that feels like it's just not that exciting anymore, to make sure that we're always pushing the envelope and trying new things. When I'm looking for products that like help me respond to those wants and those needs and those trends, usually my method is I'll reach out to my reps, so my
Distributor reps, if they have anything in their portfolio. All right.
Yeah, and just ask them what they have in their portfolio that like falls into that category of that thing that I'm looking for, and have them bring it in and taste it. If it is not something that is readily available, I usually will just find the supplier online, typically Instagram, and just like DM them and like try to get a sample in my hand so I can play around with it. I think non-alcoholic spirits are a good example of this, where it was like this trend that got really sticky and there was like a whole bunch of new products on the market. There still is, and only some of them are like readily available. So it's just a matter of like kind of doing your due diligence, reaching out, getting as many samples as you can, and kind of like seeing what's actually good, what can stick around.
Brian, Marinela from the World Residences at Sea again. What is the fastest growing trend in mixology that you see, in US? I'm sure there must be 2 or 3, but overall, just not your own bar, but what are you seeing, in the country?
Especially on the East Coast. I'm positioned between Miami and New York, so. And I catch bartenders coming in from there, and like we're always talking shop. So the biggest trends is like Jason said, low ABV or zero proof cocktails are starting to take off. The other thing, like I see in New York, is like trying to go crystal clear on clarification of cocktails. And then the newest trend that's popped up in my echo chamber has been like taking food recipes and making them into drinks. Two Smocks is famous for that. And then I've seen quite a few bars. There's literally one across town now that has a pad thai daiquiri. It's amazing. It's just an interesting subset of things I've seen so far.
Do you just a different question for maybe all of you, if anyone can jump in here. Do you see that London is a little trendsetter, or maybe some new countries are little trendsetters, and then it comes to US, or you still think that SF or New Orleans or US has nothing to do, and it's still some cities are popping up with their own mixology? I'm just curious. Like, do you see some more mixology methods being tried at other cities in the world?
Oh yeah, I mean it's popping up on my radar, like Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo. I've seen some really cool stuff coming out of South Africa too. So
and then do you guys see what they're up to, and then you try as well a little bit in the bars?
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite things about my bar is we have a daily feature, so my bartenders can, if they put the work in, they can make a small batch of cocktails to put out for the next couple of days. So we're always trying new things.
All right, Majid from G&I Spirits USA. Question for Jason: what do you suggest for patrons on digestives and liqueurs at the bar? After dinner, and what is your go-to after dinner drink to recommend? Are you open to tequila-based liqueurs?
Yeah, typically we would gravitate towards, an Amaro, Italian Amaro. I'm just learning a little bit more these days about French Amaros. I always like to recommend Amaro Nonino. I think it's just like a very great, nutty, sweet after dinner digestif. Would I be open to recommend tequila? Yeah, I mean, I don't know too many, at least at our bar, but yeah, we would definitely be open to them.
So when it comes to the after dinner drink recommendation or even an order transaction, let's say, curious again that customers already know what they want, so they'll just say, get me that, or what can we drink, and then you have to you have an option, an open window where you can say, all right, you want to try this?
No,
with the
we have a
dessert
dessert menu.
Okay.
We have a dessert menu that's listed along with our ports and sweet wines. We list a few cognacs and a few Amaros just to kind of facilitate with the dinner server, so they don't have to really go through the breadth of all of our options. So kind of hand
So maybe if
select.
there was a Mexican or Spanish dessert, and this would pair there nicely.
Sure,
Something
absolutely.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Understood. Paula, this is from Tim King from Prohibition Bar Group, maybe our colleagues here. What do you think is a better approach? Keeping cost of the bottle low and giving you that extra dollar, let's say, or investing in that heavy quality bottle, and are you willing to pay that dollar more? So what's your take on, how do you see this?
To me, also cost is relative. It depends where you are and what you consider low cost and high cost. Like what may be considered a low cost in New York might also be considered a higher cost than somewhere else. And I think it also evens out. You don't want something that's going to be so expensive that it's going to drive your cost up. But there also be some less expensive liquors that are spirits that can be really good quality. So I think it really, sometimes it is worth it, but you also have to see what's going to sell where you are. If something's going to be so expensive and sit on the shelf, not worth it. Something's going to cost a little bit more and really move, or you have a lot of regulars saying, I really, really want this. Can you please stock it for me? That'll also your sales as well. And I find out something's higher, you don't necessarily need to mark it up so much, even if it's something's allocated that's not going to sell. So I'd say go by what your clientele is, what your guests are, and what they want.
Understood. So if I'm hearing, if it's like your bar back house pour sort of thing, it's okay. If it's going on the shelf, or people are touching the bottle, then yes, you may value that.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Nora, this is from Matt from Iron City Distilling. I'm curious what bartenders and distributors look for in smaller brands. It's a big question, I'm sure. So I've just added maybe 5 things if we could come up with, or even 10 would be a bonus for everyone. But if there was a nice checklist that goes through your mind.
I can give you 5. I'm not sure about 10. But top of mind for me in smaller brands is story. Number 1 is always story for me. Quality is a close second, but I think particularly with smaller brands, there's a huge part of their presence in my programming is about building context about why that brand exists and what it's doing in my bar specifically, and why did it connect with me. And so I think understanding the story, knowing the story, and having a good story to tell with that brand is hugely important. Again, close second, sometimes close first is quality. So making sure that obviously the liquid in the bottle is well made, that it has purpose, that I can utilize it either in my cocktails, or that I know that my guests will respond to it if and when they have the chance to taste it. And then provenance is really important to me. So that's, I kind of shy away from using like the term local, because I think that in the spirits world, local can be a little bit dicey because I'm not necessarily expecting my local Amaro maker who's making Amaro out of Oregon to be sourcing their orris root or their gentian or, certain other botanicals, cinnamon, clove, all of those things don't really grow in Oregon. So I kind of lean more towards provenance and just thinking about what is their connection to place, what is their connection to the place that the product is actually made, and how is that part of the story. So making sure that that's meaningful and that translates. And then talking about integrity, so that connects, I think, a little bit to the sourcing and the provenance, but looking at, how if they are sourcing global ingredients, what are the standards and the tenets that they adhere to when they're sourcing those things? Are they using fair trade? Are they looking for dry farmed ingredients? Are there other things that are informing the integrity of what's in the bottle? Organic production is huge. And then finally, price point, which is obviously always a factor. I think me personally, if it's a smaller brand that's doing smaller production, and especially a newer brand that's just starting out and they're independent and they're not getting like a ton of funding from some big corporation, I always have more wiggle room on my margin for a price point. So I allow that in the programming that I built out for the beverage programs. So, but it has to be reasonable. It has to be something that can actually get ordered and not break somebody's bank. So yeah, that's 5.
Anything else want to add? Because I think this will be the main question I'm sure brands would want to hear. As far as support program goes, or any other things, like the distribution bottlenecks, I don't know, but maybe throw in some more other angles that they can, give you so to get a sale.
I think it's with smaller brands too that they kind of have to show more presence at the bar. I think you really want to dive deep and try to cultivate the relationship, because with most buyers, they're typically can be overwhelmed with new products here and there, and a lot of them can be from larger companies with more budget, with more sales reps, with more funding. So I think that if they truly stand behind their product, they really should try to get to know the bar program of who they're trying to get in with and really kind of connect with them on that level rather than just toss the coin into the bucket.
Paula, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, what I was going to say too, this business is all about relationships. The brands obviously are important, but if you have a good relationship with the bartender, bar manager, or somebody else that referred you, that can also help you get in as a smaller brand, and quality and also supply. Sometimes smaller brands, there isn't enough. Say you want to put it in a cocktail and it's reasonably priced, and then you're going to find out, oh, well, they're not going to have enough of supply, which is not all smaller brands, but it's just something, especially newer ones.
Brian, do you want to add anything?
Well, Paula just hit on my point. It's definitely a supply chain, especially for South Carolina. We're the 40s on the 50 states. We're the 46th for things to drop. So if you're trying to get into our market, having a steady supply is definitely a thing for us.
What makes customers choose more expensive spirit when they can get a different brand that's cheaper? This is for the end consumer. Let's say why do you think? I think I'll rephrase this maybe. Why do you think this is from Tucker Casanova from 8 Shires Distillery? Why do you think people buy expensive when there is a $2 cheaper stuff?
Marketing, packaging, and then just being the first to market to have a keyword like gluten-free. I think everybody can agree on that particular vodka. That if they see it on the back bar, doesn't matter if you have a well that's sitting at $6, they're going to order that particular vodka. It's just the way it is. As far as choosing a more expensive spirit, it goes back to the story behind the brand. Do they champion a cause? What's the story? Marketing, packaging, and just how far are they penetrated into the market?
And I think when it comes to the same question for you, let's say as a buyer, you would buy if it's a superior quality as well, right? If the liquid itself justifies the price.
I have products at different price range with great quality. And if somebody goes off of our menu and asks for something bartender's choice, I'm gonna pick up other brands, after me and the guest have built the relationship up, where I can go, hey, you really like this? Let's try this. It's like back and forth. Our job is to put new brands in people's faces, and that's what we do.
Do you prefer if the suppliers or brand owners, give you suggestion? Okay, here are my 3 suggested cocktails in a nicer way, obviously. Or you prefer that it's just like, hey, Jason, you let us know, and then we'll print the menu for you.
I'm always open to cocktail ideas. I'm always surprised at things that I see, and I never thought of those particular combinations. But in general, for the cocktail lists at the restaurants, they're created by either myself or my bar team. But no, I mean it's all education.
I think
It's all
when a sales rep who's not a mixology or a bartender who's never seen that side of the world,
Yeah.
gives you a suggestion. I'm sure all right, what do you know about mixology, for example? Do you think that at least that sort of person, unless it's coming from a distiller or some mixology, I mean, where is the line? I'm trying to understand that. Who do you think can give suggestion, and who do you think should not give suggestion? If anyone else can take this as well if you want.
My style, I welcome all suggestions. I don't.
Okay.
I think everyone likes to drink what they drink, and I think they're all valid points. What actually ends up on the menu may have more filtration than that, but I would never.
Got it. So it's fine, like for them to include 3 suggested cocktails in their deck, right?
Sure.
That's one more for you. From Francisca from Mansa Spirits. What are some recommendations on disrupting the industry and convincing bartenders about new spirit type? For example, in my case, it's palm spirit, which is tapped from a palm tree.
I'm going to touch a little bit on what Nora said about smaller brands, and it is a lot about educating the buyer and the bar team about the story behind the brand, and why they're entering into the market, and some of the things that can be passed on to the consumer to kind of get them excited. And having a new type of spirit is great because people go to bars and go to restaurants for an experience. So, instead of just getting their normal drink, then they can get educated and introduced to something new. They try it, hopefully they like it, and then that in and of itself is the essence of hospitality. But I think it's just really about coming in and learning about the bar program and trying to come in with an angle on why, for example, a palm spirit would fit into the bar program there, and I guess an easy way to implement it.
So maybe if we can reverse this, into, let's say I have this palm spirit or XYZ, very niche thing. How do I identify or find my prospective bars? How do I know like who's doing this kind of thing? Is it just literally going to each and having a look at the menu? Is there any systems or process or data out there?
I mean, I would technically gravitate towards restaurant bars, obviously, and maybe smaller, higher end cocktail bars, just because I don't feel like very mainstream, like high volume neighborhood bars or whatnot might go for something like this. But yeah, I mean, a palm spirit, you could gravitate towards, specific ethnicities of cuisine.
Nora, this is from Alejo from Bexperia, the gin place. What is your opinion about the contemporary gins from all over the world instead of the classic ones?
Well, I just wanted to go back really quick to Jason's question and just throw in the idea of doing a cocktail competition for local bartenders. I think that's always a really great tactic to getting a new spirit into people's hands and having them experiment a little bit with it and try it in cocktails. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I love that. I love when that happens. For me, let's see. So gin, I love gin. Gin's one of my favorite categories. It's all about expressiveness and balance and often I think use in cocktails, which is kind of where my expertise lays. I tend to shy away from flavored gins that feel gimmicky or kind of overly novel. There's quite a few of them out there, and some of them have become quite popular recently. So I really tend to lean towards flavored gins or gins that have kind of a shining fruit or botanical in it. That feel authentic and that kind of feel like they have a place that makes sense within their provenance. And also that shine through in cocktails. I think often we have a flavored component or a flavored spirit, and we call it out on our cocktail menu. But if it doesn't, when it's in a cocktail, if it doesn't actually taste like that, it's kind of pointless for us. So it has to have a flavor that carries, and that is bold. Otherwise, it can get lost, I guess, in the cocktail application.
I think I want to also ask you on that cocktail competitions, right? If you can show us a little how. So let's say I want to do this farm spirit, mixology competition, and I'll give $1,000 for the best cocktail, and I want to launch in San Francisco, for example. So, what is the best way? Like, how do we do it?
Basically, like there's many ways to do it, but I would say like kind of base level is just creating a platform, an online platform, and reaching out to local bars and restaurants to where that there might be interest. And I think to Jason's point, like there are ways that you can go about finding these places, and then basically doing some outreach and saying, are you interested in this competition? Here's the deal. We'll bring you a sample bottle. And the sample bottle is really crucial because there's a barrier to entry. And if that means finding and purchasing the spirit along with all of the other ingredients, spending the time on the cocktail to which you may or may not get any kind of monetary compensation, a lot of bartenders just don't have the capability for that. So making sure that you're supporting them and at least getting them the liquid that they're meant to be working with.
And then submitting in online pictures and all that, or how does the audit process work?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are social media based. So it's basically like an Instagram thing where you do a post and you say, this is my thing, and then you tag the brand and you do a hashtag. Some of them are a little bit more involved, where it's basically like, you could create a Google form and then they submit through the Google form, and then you need to have judges that are not working for the brand. So, a lot of these folks will bring in kind of local other bartenders that are obviously not participating in the competition to go through and judge the recipes. And then you have a finals round. And that can either happen, usually that's like a party, like it happens like at a bar where people can show up to and can actually taste the cocktails. So that's another great way to expose a new brand to a bar community.
And what is the incentive that is a good incentive for everyone's time? Like 1,000, 2,000, or a trip, or what is the prize money there?
I think 1,000 is meaningful to people.
Okay.
Like I would say minimum 1,000 up to, I think Bartender of the Year is like $10,000. Trips are always great. Like there's tons of comps that will send you to France or to Italy. And that's always really exciting for anybody who's, for anybody, period. So yeah, I mean, I think it just depends, but it has to be, I would say probably minimum $1,000 for it to be really meaningful to a community.
Yes, Paula?
I find it actually different. A lot of the competitions that I've done as a bartender, been in the finals, usually is somebody from the brand judging it, because it's what they're looking for to represent their brand and how things work best with their brand. So that's just what I've experienced.
Fair enough. But I just found it a good hack to sort of get placements, in fact. All right, next one's for you, Paula, from Arthur from BEG Boutique Distillery. What craft spirits could do differently to gain more placements in this competitive market, which big companies can't, right? So I'm sure it's a big conversation, but if you can just simply put it in yes and no, like what Johnnie Walker cannot do that you can do.
See what your spirit is distilled with, what makes them different than another one. Is it the water that you use, the grain that you use, this is where a small family, we use a local honey, even just some little thing that will make them different. And that's so mass produced. Well, I mean, obviously some brands just want to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Some are just going to be local. Like if it's supporting, they send something, okay, we support this charity, or we're all family owned. And that kind of is a thing what people are really interested in. Like that. I don't know, like I said, it's just more of a personal touch. Sometimes when you have a smaller craft distillery, sometimes you're actually, if it's a big brand, you're really meeting the distiller. When you have a smaller brand, I've gone to a lot of things where I've met like, I went to something recently. This is my family. We're fifth generation. We still own it. we're a small distiller, and I went to a tasting with like 10 people, and I just thought it was, oh, well, this makes me really interested in using your brand and how you kept the same recipe, but you haven't been mass produced.
Brian, this is from Jeff from Goodrag Distillers, I think. As an independent spirits manufacturer, what is the best way to get stocked in a bar when the larger companies generally own the space? Pretty much, I think you can carry on from what Paula said, but we're talking about maybe, throwing money, sort of buying the bar space, or, you know what I mean? Like, what other things the small companies can do, which, allows them in their budget?
It's always going to be about building a relationship, especially if there's a local distillery that has made a really good coffee vodka. It supports local communities, local economy. That kind of a little bit superior to some of the mass produced stuff. So we went ahead and just moved on to that. But it's always building on that relationship. And then there's a smaller brand, but they're making a name for themselves that they found their niche into this particular bar, and I'm going to use my bar as it, because we use a passion fruit liqueur, and their stuff is tastier. It might be a couple of dollars more expensive, but it works very well in our cocktail, and it just gives that little extra pop that everybody who drinks it, and this is a top seller in my bar, that everybody's just like, yeah, this is better now. It's like, so it's just finding your niche, finding how you can move in, and just keep building that relationship. Maybe the time might not be right then, but if you have that relationship, and when it comes up to the new menu, maybe the bar staff is like, we really like that product, so they're going to give it a try.
So I think there is this question further down the line, or maybe it was part of this, but I'll just ask this because this also, I think, is a main objection that brands face, which is, menus or placements, and, cocktails are literally between the big brands, and agreements are there, and everything's locked and bought in, right? Like maybe from the owners or from you guys as well. But there is just no space. Like if it's whiskey, it's just you're locked in a contract with those big suppliers, and so on. So what do brands do? They just know that there's just no way. And as you say, keep a relation, and the moment that contract's over, you will be a preferred choice, or you advise not to waste time in coming again and again and saying hello every week, because it's not going to happen.
Well, it's not going to be every week, but I've got some people that literally have waited a few months, and then I don't have any contracts where we are independent, and I can basically just take one cocktail, switch out brands if I need to. But there's a couple of brands that worked with me. Well, it didn't work, but they've been around. They've been talking to me. We've hung out. We've been talking about their products, and then like this new menu that we're actually going to be putting out in the next couple of weeks. There's a couple of spots of where certain spirits in the market got discontinued. So I have to fill in those spaces. So it's just like, hey, guys, we still have that product in the state? Cool, let's move forward.
Jason, this is from Eduardo from Goodies SA. How do you deal with your, pretty much the same, similar question. If your boss has signed a contract and you just have to deal with that particular brand and you don't like it personally, maybe this question can help other bartenders as well on how to smile and keep working on that brand which you may not agree on.
This actually happens a lot, and often due to my own actions. But I think that it's a great way to have the bar team or myself be really creative. You look at a case of liquor that you bought several years ago that you have no idea what to do with, and it really challenges you. And actually, it's part of the cocktail making process that I enjoy the most is we do these happy hour specials, and I really try to use product that has just been kind of accumulated or sitting, and try to really challenge everybody to create really something really delicious, something really novel. So yeah, it's just an opportunity to be creative.
Basically, you got to honor the product that is in, right? And if it doesn't sell, you still have to figure out a way to sell, and then you just have to say that, okay, this did not work, so maybe there is another product that I would like to bring in.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to be sitting on product. It's not necessarily because we don't want to bring it in again, but there are times that you just say yes, maybe 2 or 3 too many times, and then you end up with more product than what's moving, and you put something on the back burner, and then you forget about it, and then it comes up later.
Maybe this one, Nora, you can go through this. David from Jalisco Spirits. Do you consider Spirits Awards or competition reviews when evaluating new brands? It's going to do it's market research for us as well, I guess here. So does this help your decision, or how do you how much do you pay attention to this? Let's say.
I do pay attention to it. And it is a factor. I do judging in about 5 different competitions annually. So I feel like I kind of intimately know how much integrity and how much work goes into those competitions themselves. And so I take those medals very seriously. Is it going to be the final factor for me bringing in or not bringing in a spirit? Probably not. But is it going to be a factor if I open up my door, my mind to it? Definitely. I think it's certainly something that I always look at, and particularly if I'm walking around a liquor store and I see something I don't recognize on the shelf. That's a moment where I look to see if there's any metals on that bottle.
Kimberly from Kalo from Visher Vodka is asking, there is a pay to play that big companies can afford. I think pretty much we asked this question. Could you advise on what sort of pay to play small brands can do to compete with the giants to access menu features and shelf space?
What I've done is I've gone into not more restaurants, but more bars as well. When you're trying to see what consumers can do it without if you don't have a big budget, have the bartender and you're paying for it, do small tastes of something, or say, okay, this is your cocktail with this spirit. Can we try it with this? And then some people go, oh, I really like this. I'm going to change it to et cetera, et cetera. And they say, oh, sometimes, are you carrying this? Will you carry this? Things of that sort. Also, menu, offering to print a menu, offering to do as much spends as you can. And also educate the staff, because I find out when you educate the staff that's working there and they really like the spirit or the product, find out more about it, they're much more likely to sell it. It'll get you access on the space, or even sometimes I'm like, can you put 1 bottle back here? Can you order 1 6-pack? But I think a lot more people these days, and what I've spoken to, is they want to support smaller brands. They don't necessarily want to do the big brands. They're like, what's different? And when I talk to customers and I talk to the staff, okay, this is different because of this. Okay, well, we have a vodka. What makes your vodka different? Or we have so many bourbons. What makes your bourbon different? Just one little thing. And relationships, like I said, are huge on this. And you're not going to have a budget of however many dollars a month. And sometimes you just can't compete with that. But sometimes it just takes a little bit to get in there. And even, I'll print the menus for you. I'll print the menus that are on your bar. I'll print your cocktail menu for it. And they'll be like, oh, okay, great. Let's give it a shot. I'll put you on the menu this month and let's see what happens.
I want to just add
yes,
to and for smaller brands, you can make even if the amount that you're paying or supporting is smaller, you can make that support more meaningful by doing something like we're working with Bar Hill right now with a cocktail for Earth Month. So, Bar Hill is not a huge brand,
it's an amazing product, yeah.
Yeah, they're doing a match for our contribution to a charity. So it kind of makes it like they're not spending thousands, but the spend is actually meaningful and it connects with guests.
So I'll be putting up the question, and whoever wants to jump in to answer that question would be great. So we have a question from Barry. He's asking that it's a young distillery, and in my state, I can self-distribute. Do you prefer to work with individual craft brands that can self-distribute or with distributors?
In my state, it's a Class B license, so it has to go through distribution before I can even touch it. Props to being able to self-distribute. I wouldn't be against it. I just legally couldn't touch it.
So in California, we can do both. And I run into, with my consulting clients, I run into a lot of issues with the bar managers or the bar leads that I'm working with, and they only want to work with a certain number of distributors or vendors. And so that there's kind of a self-limiting factor in there to where that can stop the entry into many accounts if you're not working with a big distributor. Unfortunately, I wish it weren't that way. For me personally, like I love when I can order direct. Because that also, I think that strengthens that relationship that Paula was talking about, where it's really about, you're actually placing the order with often the distiller, and they're often hand delivering it, which is really cool. It's just so cool to see stuff like that happening. So I hope that it continues going, and I hope that more buyers will kind of open up their minds to working with more distributors and vendors.
How our Japanese whiskey brand is being received in the US market?
I think after the initial wave of the Suntory products that happened almost a decade ago, I think I've been seeing a lot more, or being solicited a lot more by newer Japanese whiskeys coming out on the market. So I think it's a growing category in terms of the product mix and in terms of the variety of whiskeys coming out of Japan. I don't see, at least at our bars, an increase in consumption of Japanese whiskey. There's a lot of interest in it, but I feel like after COVID, a lot of luxury level consumption has decreased.
I saw a definite increase in New York, Japanese whiskey, like Bowery Road and the Library Distilled Spirits. There were people like, oh, and a lot of people said, oh, they've been to Japan. You have this, or what's the difference between this whiskey? And a lot of people, like just from my experience, were definitely asking for what type of Japanese whiskeys that you have.
So there's a question from Josh. He would like to know more perspective on the trends. So he understands that we have already explained and briefed on a couple of trends, but he would like to hear more what customers are getting excited about these days.
Apart from the no alcohols, bourbon,
Apart from low
and
ABV,
tequila and agave. Anything else are we seeing?
I think part of the reason is Japanese whiskey was on the rise because most of it's made from barley, which is similar to Scotch. Like I've even had people say, oh, I want a Japanese Scotch. I'm like, there's no such thing as a Japanese Scotch. But if you like Scotch, you probably like these Japanese whiskeys. Say this one's peated, this one's not. Because they're made from barley, there are a lot of similarities. So I definitely noticed that was a trend that was in New York.
I think in California too, we see a lot of trend for utilizing seasonal ingredients, which doesn't always obviously make sense with a stable thing like a distillate, but making sure that we can incorporate seasonal farm fresh, fruits, vegetables, and ingredients into our cocktails. I think the low and no ABV thing is still huge, and that's going to continue to carry us through probably the next 10 years or so. I'm seeing also an interest in classics, and kind of circling back on some of the classic, like even kind of new classic cocktails. So cocktails from like the early aughts, the late 90s, from New York, from New Orleans, from San Francisco. People's interests are starting to spike around those, which I think is really exciting.
We have two very specific questions. What kind of interest is there in a cream lemon liqueur and soju in the bar and restaurant environment?
I'm probably thinking the same one, a bottle of a cream lemon liqueur a couple of years ago. It could be the same brand because I hadn't really seen much since to create with. I think it depends on the type of place that you're working at. I thought it was delicious. But it's nothing that they would have to get the word out or something like that. Maybe send it to different bartenders, get the word out more about it, do a little bit more advertising, maybe in an industry magazine, or something of that sort, do a competition or have bartenders create with that, something like that. And soju in New York is definitely on the rise. Soju, sake, both of them are used in a lot of cocktails these days. And they're great. It's a great ingredient.
One question on branding and shape of the bottle. So in terms of branding, have you noticed any trends in bottle shape and sizes for certain spirits? And same type that goes with the closure. So do you prefer a twist off, synthetic, stopper versus cork? And especially it would be ideal if a gin bottle for bar operators. So this question is basically for a gin bottle. So any shape you prefer or any trend that you have been noticing in the branding and packaging?
Obviously, in a lot of bars, real estate on the back bars is pretty tight. So I think that the bottle must be beautiful and it must look good on the back bar, but not be obnoxiously sized where it takes up more space than needed. In terms of synthetic versus true cork, other than I guess, an environmental issue. I don't think for me, it doesn't really matter too much. I do hate all the plastic that's always wrapped around every single liquor bottle. But, I think packaging have standards.
I'm getting more questions. I'm asking one more question. So what area you're seeing a different interest in consumption for mezcal? So what do you think would be the biggest opportunity for a new to market mezcal brand?
Well, I think smoked cocktails got to be so popular for a while, and everybody went, oh, we're smoking this, smoking that. Where mezcal, I mean, it was very vegetal, but other ones too. There is a bit of a smokiness. You could do it. I say, instead of I'm using Scotch in this cocktail, I'm going to use mezcal. You can actually split base it, which works really, really well. But I think people are getting to know, they're not as scared as like, oh, it's smoky, I don't want it. They're more interested in it now. And it's just, it's a great cocktail ingredient.
So do you see RTD sales increasing on premise? And do you have any preferences when it comes to flavor, when it comes to calories count, etc.?
We don't really do too many RTDs at the restaurant. We've worked with some in the past to create cocktails with an RTD ingredient. So in that sense, it's not really an RTD anymore. But in terms of just self-packaged, selling it as it is, I can't speak too much on that.
The one place, and I agree with Jason, we don't do much RTD sales on premise. But I often, if you can get a really great RTD in a keg, that can be a really cool placement for an on-premise account if you can get it on draft. So whether it's a RTD spritz or a nitro charged espresso martini or something like that, that's ready to go. That helps.
How much time would you expect a small craft brand to push through 6-bottle case before you decide to delist it? What are your sales expectations, especially if it's not on your cocktail menu?
I think it kind of depends on the time of year that you're bringing it in as well. Say if it's a small brand, say Scotch might sell more in the winter, a little bit less in the summer, where certain ones, or vodka's more year round. I think it kind of depends on what the spirit is. How long I would give it.
I think just on that last question, it's for the new brand and the unknown thing. It's all on you at the end of the day, right? Because you are the one who's going to push, unless it's a cocktail which consumers are asking and you're using it for that. Got it. So and that cocktail depends on the time and the year and the mood and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, sometimes, I usually kept my menus mixed. I'll have a darker, heavier spirits on it, and I'll have lighter. It's not like the old days where, okay, it's summertime, everything has to be light, and it's winter, everything has to be dark and heavy. Now they're more mixed, but a lot of it is getting the stuff.
But I think one of the right indicator would be, are people buying a second glass of that product? So then okay, people like it, right? I think how do you instantly know that, all right, this is a hit, and it's just like 10 people have tried and not repeated?
The way I tell my bar staff, especially on the daily feature, if it's getting reordered by the same person multiple times, you've got to hit.